The boardroom went silent the moment I stepped through the glass doors. I could feel every eye on me, curiosity, confusion, maybe even fear. But there was only one pair of eyes I cared about. Hers. She sat 3 seats from the head of the table, pen frozen mid-air, lips slightly parted. The color drained from her face the second our eyes met. Good. I wanted her to feel it, the shock, the disbelief, the slow creeping dread. 2 years ago, she looked at me the same way. Except back then, it wasn't shock. It was disgust. You have no future, Daniel. I can't waste my life waiting for you to become someone. She said it in front of her friends. In front of our friends. Like I was a burden she'd finally worked up the courage to throw away. I remember the rain that night. I remember walking home alone, soaked, shaking, not from the cold, but from the hollow ache in my chest. I disappeared after that. No calls. No texts. No explanations. I let her think I gave up. I let her think she was right. But now I'm standing here, in a tailored suit that costs more than her monthly salary, holding the title she spent years clawing toward. CEO. Her new boss. And judging by the way her hands are trembling, she knows exactly what that means. I wasn't supposed to be at that mixer. The invitation came from my friend Marcus, who showed up at my apartment unannounced on a Thursday night, took one look at my paint-stained hoodie and the stack of instant ramen cups on my desk, and said, "You're coming with me." No arguments. I tried to argue anyway. Told him I had a deadline. Told him I didn't belong at corporate events with people who wore watches worth more than my rent. But Marcus was relentless. He dragged me into his car, threw a button-down shirt at me, and said, "Just show up. You don't have to stay long." So I went. The venue was one of those trendy loft spaces downtown, exposed brick, Edison bulbs, a bar that stretched the length of the room. Everyone looked like they'd stepped out of a LinkedIn ad. Suits. Heels. Conversations about quarterly earnings and market trends. I felt like an imposter in borrowed clothes. I nursed a cheap beer near the back, counting down the minutes until I could leave without seeming rude. That's when I saw her. She stood near the center of the room, a glass of white wine in one hand, mid-conversation with a group of people who hung on her every word. She had this presence, the kind that made you notice her even in a crowded room. Dark hair pulled into a sleek ponytail. A charcoal blazer that fit like it was tailored. Confidence that didn't feel performative. It just was. I didn't mean to stare. But I did. And then, somehow, she looked over. Our eyes met for half a second. She smiled, polite, distant, and turned back to her conversation. I thought that was it. But 20 minutes later, Marcus introduced us. "Daniel, this is Sophia Carter. Sophia, Daniel's a designer. One of the best I know." She extended her hand. Her grip was firm. "Designer?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. "What kind?" "Graphic. Branding, mostly. Freelance." "Freelance." She said it like she was tasting the word. Not judging. Just curious. That's brave. Most people can't handle the uncertainty. I shrugged. It's not about bravery. It's about doing what I love. She studied me for a moment, then smiled, a real one this time. I like that. We started talking. And we didn't stop. She told me about her job in marketing, about the campaigns she was working on, about the pressure to constantly perform. I told her about my projects, about the clients who ghosted me after asking for free revisions, about the late nights spent perfecting a design no one might ever see. She laughed at my stories. Not out of pity, but because she actually found them funny. "You're interesting," she said at one point, leaning against the bar. "Most guys at these things just want to talk about themselves. You actually listen." "Maybe I'm just bad at talking about myself," I said. "Or maybe you're just different." By the end of the night, she handed me her business card, sleek, minimalist, with her name embossed in gold. "Call me," she said. "I mean it." I stared at the card all the way home. A week later, we met for coffee. It was supposed to be casual. Just two people grabbing a drink. But the conversation flowed like we'd known each other for years. She asked about my work, really asked, like she wanted to understand it. I asked about hers. She told me about the campaign she was pitching, about the fear of failure, about the thrill of winning. "I love what I do," she said, stirring her latte slowly. "But sometimes I wonder if I'm too focused on it. Like I'm missing out on? I don't know. Life. You're not missing out, I said. You're just building something. That takes time. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I felt something shift. You get it, she said softly. Yeah, I said. I do. We started seeing each other more after that. Coffee dates turned into dinners. Dinners turned into walks through the city at midnight, talking about nothing and everything. She'd come to my cramped studio apartment, sit cross-legged on my worn-out couch, and watch me work for hours without complaining. I love how you get lost in it, she said once, her voice quiet. Like nothing else exists. I turned to look at her. She was smiling, her eyes soft in the glow of my desk lamp. You're the only person who's ever said that, I said. Then you've been around the wrong people. One night, she fell asleep on my couch while I was finishing a project. I draped a blanket over her and kept working. When I finally stopped and looked over, she was watching me, half awake. You stayed up all night? She murmured. Yeah. Why? Because I wanted to finish it. She smiled. Reached for my hand. You're going to be someone, Daniel, she whispered. I know it. I believed her. God, I believed her. 3 months in, I told her I loved her. It was late. We were sitting on the roof of her apartment building, under string lights that flickered in the breeze. The city sprawled out below us, endless and alive. I love you, I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. She turned to me, eyes wide. For a second, I thought I'd ruined everything. But then she smiled. And tears filled her eyes. I love you too, she whispered. She kissed me then, soft and slow, like we had all the time in the world. I thought we did. I thought this was just the beginning. But looking back now, standing in that boardroom 2 years later, I realized that night was the peak. Everything after that was a slow descent. And I was too in love to see it coming. The first year felt like a dream I didn't want to wake up from. Sophia and I became inseparable. We built a world that felt like ours alone, a world where her ambition and my passion didn't just coexist, they thrived together. She introduced me to her circle. Rooftop bars with skyline views. Networking events where everyone seemed to know everyone. Gallery openings in spaces that smelled like expensive wine and even more expensive art. At first, I felt out of place. I'd show up in my best shirt, which was still just a thrift button-down, and stand awkwardly while people talked about mergers and stock options. But Sophia would take my hand, lean in close, and whisper, "You belong here just as much as anyone else." And for a while, I believed her. I brought her into my world too. Late-night art shows in cramped studios where the work was raw and unpolished. Hole-in-the-wall diners that served the best food you'd ever taste for $5. Quiet parks where I'd sketch while she sat beside me, reading or just watching the world go by. "I love this," she said one afternoon, lying on the grass with her head in my lap. "It feels real. Grounded. Like I can actually breathe." "You can breathe anywhere," I said, tracing the lines of her face with my pencil. "Not like this." She looked up at me, her eyes soft. "Not in my world." I kissed her forehead. "Then stay in mine." She became my muse without me even realizing it. Every design I made, every concept I pitched, every project I poured myself into, she was there. In the colors I chose. In the shapes I drew. In the feeling I tried to capture. I started a personal project around that time, a series of posters inspired by her. Each one captured a different side of her. Her strength. Her vulnerability. Her fire. I didn't show them to her right away. They felt too personal. Too raw. But one night, she found them. I'd fallen asleep at my desk, and when I woke up, she was standing in front of my corkboard, staring at the sketches pinned there. "Daniel." Her voice was quiet. Breathless. I sat up, suddenly self-conscious. "I was going to. These are me." "Yeah." She turned to look at me, and there were tears in her eyes. "You see me like this? I see you exactly like this." She crossed the room and kissed me, hard, desperate, like she was trying to pour everything she felt into that one moment. "I don't deserve you," she whispered against my lips. "Yes, you do." I meant it. But somewhere between the second year and the third, something changed. It was subtle at first. So subtle I almost didn't notice. Sophia got promoted. Then promoted again. Her circle expanded. The events got bigger. The people got richer. The conversations shifted from dreams to portfolios, from passion to profit. And I stayed the same. I was still freelancing. Still working out of my tiny apartment. Still chasing clients who paid late or didn't pay at all. I loved my work, but it wasn't stable. It wasn't impressive. It wasn't enough. She started making comments. Small ones. Offhand. Easy to brush off. Have you thought about applying to agencies? You're talented enough. Maybe freelancing isn't sustainable long term. I just want you to have security, babe. I told her I was fine. That I was building something. That it took time. But the comments kept coming. And slowly, I felt the distance grow. She stopped coming to my apartment as often. When she did, she seemed distracted. Checking her phone. Answering emails. Talking about work in a way that made it clear her world was moving faster than mine. One night, I asked her to stay in with me. Just the two of us. No events. No networking. Just us. She hesitated. I have this thing tomorrow morning. I really should get some sleep. You can sleep here. Daniel. The way she said my name, it was gentle, but it felt like a wall going up. I just need to be home tonight. Okay? I nodded. She kissed me on the cheek and left. I sat there alone, staring at the door she'd just walked through, and for the first time, I felt it. The shift. The pull. The slow, quiet unraveling of everything we'd built. I tried to fix it. I worked harder. Took on bigger projects. Pitched to clients I never thought I'd have a shot with. But rejection after rejection piled up. And every time I came home empty-handed, I felt smaller. Sophia never said anything cruel. She was never mean. But she stopped looking at me the way she used to. Like I was someone worth believing in. One evening, we were sitting on her couch. She was scrolling through her phone. I was sketching, trying to distract myself from the silence. Daniel. Yeah? Do you ever think about doing something different? I looked up. Different how? She hesitated. I don't know. Something more stable. Something with a future. There it was. The word that would haunt me for years. Future. I am building a future, I said quietly. I know. She sighed. I don't want you to struggle forever. I'm not struggling. I'm growing. She didn't respond. And in that silence, I felt everything crack. The dinner party was supposed to be casual. One of Sophia's coworkers was turning 30, and she'd rented out a private room at some upscale restaurant downtown. Sophia asked me to come. Said it would be fun. Said her friends wanted to meet me. I should have said no. But I wanted to support her. Wanted to show her I could fit into her world, even if I didn't feel like I belonged there. So I went. The restaurant was the kind of place where the menu didn't have prices and the waiters poured water like it was a ritual. Everyone there looked expensive, tailored suits, designer dresses, watches that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. I wore my best shirt. It still wasn't enough. Sophia introduced me to a few people when we arrived. I shook hands. Smiled. Tried to keep up with conversations about bonuses and vacation homes and promotions I couldn't even imagine. But the whole time, I felt invisible. Sophia barely looked at me. She was caught up in her own conversations, laughing with her coworkers, animated in a way I hadn't seen in months. I sat at the end of the table, nursing a drink I didn't want, watching her from across the room. She looked happy. Happier than she'd been with me in a long time. About an hour in, someone asked the question I'd been dreading. So, Daniel, a guy in a sharp navy suit said, leaning forward with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. What do you do? I opened my mouth to answer, but Sophia beat me to it. He's a designer, she said quickly. Then, after a pause, freelance. He's figuring things out. The table went quiet. Figuring things out. I felt my chest tighten. A few people laughed, awkward, polite laughs that made it worse. Freelance, huh? The guy said, smirking. That's a nice way of saying unemployed. More laughter. I forced a smile. It's a nice way of saying I work for myself. Sure, sure. He waved me off like I was a joke he'd already finished telling. Sophia didn't say anything. She just looked down at her plate. Later in the night, the same guy, his name was Brett, I think, turned to Sophia with a grin. So when are you gonna settle down with someone who can actually keep up with you? I froze. Sophia laughed. Not a real laugh. A nervous one. Brett, stop. I'm serious. You're killing it right now. You deserve someone on your level. I waited for her to defend me. To say something. Anything. But she didn't. She just smiled and changed the subject. And in that moment, I knew. I wasn't on her level. I never had been. The drive home was silent. I stared out the window, watching the city blur past, my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. Sophia didn't say anything either. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. Do you still believe in me? The words came out quieter than I meant them to. She didn't answer right away. She kept her eyes on the road, her hands gripping the steering wheel. I don't know anymore, Daniel. I felt something crack inside me. What does that mean? It means I'm tired. Her voice was strained. I'm tired of waiting for you to figure it out. I'm tired of defending you to people who don't think you're good enough. I'm tired of pretending this is going somewhere. Pretending? You know what I mean. No. I don't. She pulled over. Put the car in park. Turned to face me. I love you. I do. But love isn't enough, Daniel. I need stability. I need someone who has their life together. And you don't. Her words hit me like a punch. I'm trying, I said, my voice breaking. I'm trying so hard. I know. But trying isn't the same as succeeding. I stared at her, and for the first time, I didn't recognize the person looking back. 3 days later, she ended it. She texted me and asked to meet at a coffee shop. Mid-afternoon. Public. Safe. I knew what was coming. She showed up 10 minutes late, her expression calm, rehearsed. We sat down. She ordered a latte. I didn't order anything. I can't do this anymore, she said, her voice steady. I know. She blinked. You know? I've known for a while. Silence. I'm sorry, she said. But it didn't sound like she meant it. It sounded like a line she'd practiced. You said I have no future. She flinched. I didn't mean it like that. Then how did you mean it? She looked away. I can't wait around for you to figure it out, Daniel. I have my own life. My own goals. And you're not part of them anymore. I nodded slowly. Okay. She stood. Grabbed her bag. Take care of yourself. And then she left. I sat there for 2 hours, staring at my untouched cup of water, feeling the weight of everything I'd lost settle over me like a fog I couldn't escape. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. Not Marcus. Not my parents. Not the few clients I had left. I just disappeared. It was easier that way. The breakup shattered me in a way I didn't expect. I thought I'd be angry. Thought I'd fight for her, for us, for the life we were supposed to build together. But I wasn't angry. I was hollow. For 2 weeks, I didn't work. Didn't eat. Didn't leave my apartment except to buy instant ramen and avoid my landlord. I'd sit at my desk, staring at half-finished designs, and feel nothing. Every time I tried to create something, I'd see her face. Hear her voice. You have no future. And I'd close my laptop. But one night, something shifted. I was scrolling through old emails, looking for anything that might give me a reason to keep going. And I found it. A message from a client I'd worked with a year ago. A startup based in Seoul. The CEO had been impressed with my work and told me, if you ever want to go big, come find me. I stared at that email for 20 minutes. Then I booked a one-way ticket to Seoul. I left 3 days later. Packed a duffel bag with clothes, my laptop, and a sketchbook. Closed my freelance accounts. Didn't renew my lease. I told myself I'd come back if it didn't work out. But deep down, I knew I wasn't coming back. Seoul hit me like a wall. The language. The culture. The speed of it all. I spent the first week in a tiny goshiwon, a room barely bigger than a closet, with a bed, a desk, and a window that didn't open. The walls were so thin I could hear my neighbors breathing. But I didn't care. I reached out to the CEO, his name was Jinwoo, and told him I was ready to work. He didn't ask why I came. He just said, good. Be at my office tomorrow. The first 6 months were hell. I worked 16-hour days. Learned Korean through Google Translate and broken conversations. Pitched ideas that got rejected over and over. But I kept going. I had nothing left to lose. My first break came from a small startup that needed a rebrand. They were scrappy, underfunded, and desperate. Perfect. I poured everything into it. Stayed up for 3 days straight perfecting the visuals, the messaging, the feel. When I presented it, the room went silent. Then the CEO smiled. This is it. This is exactly what we needed. The campaign launched 2 weeks later. And it exploded. Within a month, the startup got acquired by a major tech company. And I got noticed. Offers started coming in. Bigger companies. Bigger budgets. Bigger stakes. I went from freelancer to consultant. From consultant to creative director. Within a year, I was leading an entire design department at one of the fastest growing firms in Seoul. I was good at it. Better than I ever thought I could be. Because I wasn't designing for love anymore. I was designing for survival. 18 months in, I got the call. A major investment firm was acquiring a struggling marketing company in the US. They needed someone to turn it around. Someone bold. Someone hungry. Someone who had nothing left to prove except everything. They wanted me. I took the call in my apartment, an actual apartment now, with a view and furniture that didn't come from a thrift store. We'll send the contract over, the exec said. We think you're the right fit. Which company is it? I asked. There was a pause. Carter and Associates. Mid-sized firm. Based in. I stopped listening. Carter. Sophia's company. I hung up. Stared at the wall. Then I smiled. For the first time in 2 years, I smiled. I signed the contract the next day. The flight back felt like stepping into a memory I'd tried to bury. I stared out the window as the plane descended, watching the city come into view, familiar skyline, familiar streets, familiar ghosts. 2 years ago, I left this place broken. Now I was coming back whole. Or at least, that's what I told myself. The company sent a car to pick me up from the airport. Black sedan. Leather seats. A driver who didn't ask questions. I sat in the back, watching the city pass by, and tried to remember what it felt like to be the person I used to be. But I couldn't. That person was gone. Walking into the Carter and Associates building felt surreal. Everything was the same. The glass doors. The marble lobby. The logo etched into the wall in brushed steel. Even the smell, coffee and cold air conditioning, mixed with something vaguely floral. I'd been here before. Twice. Once for a company holiday party. Once to pick Sophia up after work. Back then, I felt small in this space. Out of place. Like I didn't belong. Now, I owned it. The receptionist didn't recognize me. Why would she? I was nobody back then. Just the boyfriend who waited awkwardly in the lobby. Now I was the CEO. Mr. Kim, she said, standing quickly. Welcome. The executive team is ready for you. I nodded. Lead the way. The boardroom was on the top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows. A table that could seat 20. Expensive chairs that probably cost more than my old rent. 5 executives sat waiting, their faces a mix of nerves and forced confidence. I walked in, set my briefcase down, and didn't waste time with pleasantries. Let's get to it, I said, taking the seat at the head of the table. Show me where you're bleeding. They weren't subtle about it. Revenue down 30%. Client retention at an all-time low. Morale in the basement. Leadership paralyzed by indecision. This company is dying, I said, cutting off the CFO mid-sentence. If we don't make major changes in the next quarter, it's over. Silence. What kind of changes? Someone asked. Every kind. I leaned forward. Restructure the teams. Cut the dead weight. Rebuild from the ground up. And we start tomorrow. They nodded. Took notes. No one argued. Good. After the meeting, I asked for the department files. I want a full breakdown, I said. Every team. Every manager. Every project. They handed me a stack of folders. I flipped through them slowly. Sales. Creative. HR. And then I found it. Marketing. I opened the file. And there she was. Sophia Carter, Senior Marketing Manager. Her name. Her title. Her photo, professional, polished, exactly how I remembered her. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I closed the folder. Set up a full staff meeting tomorrow, I said, my voice calm. I want everyone there. Everyone? Everyone. I didn't sleep that night. I stood by the window of my hotel room, staring out at the city lights, replaying every memory. The mixer. The rooftop. The breakup. Her voice, cold and steady, you have no future. Tomorrow, she'd see me again. And this time, I'd be the one in control. The meeting room was packed. Every department. Every manager. Standing room only. I could feel the energy in the room, anxious, uncertain, buzzing with rumors. No one knew who I was. Not really. They knew my name. My title. My reputation. But they didn't know me. I walked in exactly on time, flanked by 2 senior executives. The room went silent. I didn't smile. Didn't wave. Just walked to the front and stood there, letting the weight of the moment settle. "Good morning," I said, my voice steady. "My name is Daniel Kim. As of today, I'm your new CEO." I scanned the room slowly. That's when I saw her. Sophia. She was standing near the back, arms crossed, her face carefully neutral. But her eyes gave her away. Wide. Stunned. Frozen. I held her gaze for 3 seconds. Then I moved on. I didn't sugarcoat anything. "This company is failing," I said. "Revenue is down. Morale is down. Leadership is weak. But that changes today." I walked them through my plan. The restructuring. The cuts. The new direction. People took notes. Nodded. Looked nervous. Good. They should be. After the meeting, people lingered. A few came up to introduce themselves. Shook my hand. Said things like, "We're excited to work with you." I played the part. Smiled. Thanked them. But the whole time, I felt her watching me. She didn't approach. She stood near the door, frozen, like she couldn't decide whether to leave or stay. As I walked toward the exit, I stopped in front of her. "Miss Carter." She flinched at the sound of her own name. "Yes, sir. Sir." The word tasted better than I expected. "I'll need a full report on your current campaigns by end of day. Don't be late." Her mouth opened. Closed. Understood. I walked past her without another word. Behind me, I heard her exhale, sharp, shaky, like she'd been holding her breath the entire time. Good. Let her feel what I felt. The next few weeks were brutal. I tore the company apart and rebuilt it from scratch. Restructured teams. Fired underperformers. Reassigned projects. Pushed everyone harder than they'd ever been pushed. And I was hardest on the marketing department. Not because I wanted revenge. Because they were underperforming. And she was responsible. Every report Sophia submitted, I tore apart. Every campaign she pitched, I questioned. This messaging is weak. This demographic analysis is incomplete. This isn't good enough. Do it again. I made her work for every approval. She started staying late. I'd walk past her office at midnight and see the lights still on. See her hunched over her desk, papers scattered everywhere, her face tight with exhaustion. One night, I stopped outside her door. She was sitting with her head in her hands, her shoulders trembling. Crying. I almost said something. Almost. But I didn't. I just kept walking. 2 weeks later, she confronted me. She knocked on my office door and walked in without waiting for permission. "Can we talk?" I didn't look up from my laptop. "If it's about work, send an email." "Daniel. It's Mr. Kim in this building." Her voice cracked. "Please." I finally looked at her. She looked broken. Pale. Thinner. Dark circles under her eyes. "What do you want, Ms. Carter?" She hesitated. "I'm sorry." Silence. For what? For what I said. For how I ended things. I was wrong. I leaned back in my chair, studying her. "You weren't wrong. You were honest." Her eyes filled with tears. "I didn't mean. You meant every word." I stood. Walked to the window. "You said I had no future. And you were right. That version of me didn't." I turned to face her. "But he's gone." She stared at me, shaking. "I'm not here for closure," I said quietly. "I'm here to do my job. And so are you." She opened her mouth. Closed it. Then turned and left without another word. 3 months later, the company turned a profit for the first time in over a year. The board was thrilled. Congratulated me. Offered me a permanent position with a salary that would have made my younger self weep. I declined. "I'm not staying," I said. They looked confused. "Why not?" "You saved this place." "That's exactly why I'm leaving. My job here is done." On my last day, I walked through the office one final time. People smiled at me. Thanked me. Shook my hand. I felt nothing. I saw her in the hallway. She looked different. Not broken anymore. Tired, maybe. But stronger. "Congratulations," she said quietly. "You saved this place." I nodded. "Thank you." We stood there in silence. "For what it's worth," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "I'm proud of you." I smiled. Not out of bitterness. But out of something softer. Something like peace. "I'm proud of me too." I walked out of that building and didn't look back. Not because I hated her. But because I'd finally stopped needing her to see me. I saw myself. And that was enough.